Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rud, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a judges seminar that my training group, well, at least two of the members of my training group went to, Josh Munson and Bill Chittenden. Welcome both Bill and Josh.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going?
That was really inspirational, guys. You were that was the longest delay of an introduction because you didn't want to step on each other, right? And be like, oh, that's waiting for Bill, you know? Well, anyway, this is the first time we're doing three people through Riverside, which is the recording system that we used for the podcast. So we'll see how this goes. I think it's going to work out great. But I'll give a little backstory on how I met both of these fine folks. And then I'll let them tell a little bit about their retriever story. I met Bill, I think, through Green Acres in some form or fashion. And we went and we met at a place. One of the key themes you'll see about our training group is Josh finds our spots. He's like the ultimate, I don't know. You don't scout a ton for birds because you kind of got your place set up, but you are always scouting for a new place to train. And he found this. I don't even know how you found this place in the town that was kind of between Bill and I in West Chicago. And it was just this field with this massive hill, and we would train there. Anyway, I met Bill that's right. We were pre-grand training down at Green Acres, and I invited him to come out and train with me one day, and we trained one time all that year. And then the next year, I think we trained together 3 to 4 times a week. So it turned out to be a really good partnership. He's the brains and the wisdom of the operation, and I'm just the guy that is really excited about everything, and not always in a good way. Is that fair to say, Bill?
Right, yeah. I'm the old guy in the group, is all I know. And, I'm not on this for my outstanding success in hunt tests or my wisdom. Chris is kind of the guy that directs the traffic on a lot of it for me, and I appreciated the best thing about it was all the places that Josh found. I didn't know who found them when I first met Chris, but we were training at little apartment complexes and condo complexes that had ponds out there. I was amazed being stuck in the suburbs where it's very difficult to train, that there were so many options out there, and amazing what you can get done if you put your mind to it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then there's so many good stories, but this one, I just had to tell this. We were training was it Sunday that we went? We were training, and it was Sunday. We were training. We were running this water setup, and I've been kind of loosely playing with the idea of running Rex in the Grand. For those that haven't heard in previous episodes, he can't hear very well. He's a young dog, but he did pass the Grand once, and I was like, okay, how do I get him through it? Well, I'm kind of just trying to see where he's at with stuff, and I hadn't done swim by in a while, and he decided to cheat a bank on the way back. And I remember this, Bill, and I blew a whistle. He stopped. He looked at me, and I kind of half casted him and I was just trying to recall him back into the water, and he wouldn't do it. He kept running. He stopped, and it became very clear that he had no idea what he was doing wrong. And he got to the point where there's no return. He has to get in the water, and I just yelled, "Get in the water!" And he jumped in the water, and I got on the radio and I said, "Hey, Bill, Rex speaks English." And anyway, so I thought that was a pretty good story, but. Rex is, I think we're going to have to flunk him out of the pre-grand program. We tried to run 2 blinds that were only a couple hundred, 100 yards away, but with the wind not being perfect, he couldn't hear us. So kind of a bummer, but it is what it is, and it's been fun to get him back out. So, okay, now Josh and I actually went to high school together. Josh graduated 1 year before me. But also there's another guy that is in Josh's class that used to wrestle with me that is in HRC. Is he in Peoria? He's in the Peoria area. Yeah. And I ran into him in Iowa. So that's why I was like thinking he was in Iowa, but no, he's in Peoria. So I have to say Sandwich High School has produced 3 HRC folks. So I feel like how big was your graduating class? Like 250? That's what I think mine was.
I think just under 200, I think.
Yeah. So yours is just under 200. Mine, I think, was just a pinch over that. Has produced 3 HRC folks in the area. Like, I feel like that, like we're a feeder school or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, Josh is, as I previously mentioned, has found all of our great training spots. I think it has to do with his great salesmanship and just good charm. So it's worked out great. He got us connected with Sharon, who has the Tech Water. Like, I don't know, have we counted how many ponds are on there? I think there's at least 7, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, at least 7 tech ponds, and it's beautiful. Except they pulled our hay bales, which makes us very sad.
There'll be more.
It makes me sad. Well, anyway, before we get too deep into this and talk about the Judges Seminar, why don't you guys give like the 2-minute synopsis of how you guys got into the retriever game? And Bill, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I guess like a lot of people in this game, started hunting when I was a kid, waterfowl and upland. Hardly ever with a good dog. But the times I did hunt with good dogs, that was probably the most fun I'd ever had. And I don't know, career got in the way for many years and didn't really ever have time to have my own hunting dog until my later years. And I ended up with a yellow lab that was Tucker. It was kind of, they call him a field lab. I don't think we even knew the pedigree or anything like that, but he was a good meat dog in the upland fields and had a lot of fun with him. And but just whetted my appetite for finally getting a real hunting dog, what I would call a real hunting dog, hunting lab. And because I've hunted with a lot of great dogs, and I just realized that's really what I probably enjoy more than anything about hunting, is watching good dogs work. So anyway, I got old Gus and worked with a guy named Roy Ropp, who actually was like one of the original founders, I think, of Whistle HRC Club. And he was a guy that trained dogs out at McGraw, and he a good friend of mine. He just helped me, got me through force fetch with Gus and forced to pile and some of those basic things. And he basically just told me, Bill, Gus is a damn good dog, and you might want to try one of these games, and sent me up to Bong to one of those. I did a season test first and just kind of jumped right into it. I mean, I didn't know anything. I had him on a leash with a regular collar with his city tags on and the whole 9 yards. I remember the judges is like, let me give you a slip lead. I think I still have the slip lead. He was kind enough to donate it to me. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But anyway, he smoked it. Of course, he smoked the test, and then I was just hooked. I just thought it was one of the funnest things I'd done. And my athletic kids were gone from the house, and I got my new athlete to watch. And one thing led to another, and just kept going with it. Did it the hard way, though. Just and Gus is, as you guys know, he's the proof of that. You can take a real good dog and take a real long time with him, and you might get there. But you got to start early. Now I've learned a hell of a lot over the years, and hopefully I'm doing a better job with my second dog, Cooper, who's 3 now. So that's kind of my story, and enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Gus is an awesome dog. He's got his both his HRCH and his Master Hunter, and 1 Grand Pass, and he still might take another crack at the Grand. He's getting older, and we'll see where we end up. But every day he's out there with as much heart as all of them. So he's a super cool black lab. And Bill is the guy that has all the British labs. So I'm very familiar with the Bill's he trains it all on American techniques, but they're got some horsepower. And Coop is training for quals right now, so pretty excited about that. Are you going to run that fun qual at Wissam? Wissam.
I think I am, just to see how it goes.
It'll be fun. Get out there and do it.
Let him smoke it, and then I'll get into a real one, and when it counts.
Is that this weekend or next weekend? I can't remember.
I think it's the day before Easter. Yeah.
Oh, day before Easter. Cool. Well, that'll be awesome. All right, Josh, give us a brief intro on your background.
Yeah, so I got started in Hunt Test kind of by mistake. I didn't really have any intention of buying a dog, and I ended up with one. He was 3 when I got him. Had some training, and I thought he was pretty good. So I wanted to run some AKC Hunt Tests with him. Got hooked up with a trainer in Wisconsin, and he kind of walked me through things, and he'd take him for a little bit and kind of prep him for things, and I would take him and go run a hunt test. So we started in AKC, ran senior, and then once we titled in that, I kind of had a conversation with the guy, Tom Waits, his name, a real good dude, and he said, "Why don't you try HRC instead of going to master? I think you'd have more fun with that." And one of his other clients was a member of a club close by, and he said you should go train with them and see how that goes. And we made the move over to HRC and ran some season stuff there. And I liked the HRC quite a bit. He was right. It's pretty fun. So now I have Reggie, and see where that goes. So Reggie's a year and a half old now.
Yep. And we'll talk about kind of how we always had dogs in our training group of different ages and different, characteristics and, pitfalls that we got to work around. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I think at the end, we're going to bring Tyler in, and the 4 of us who train together at least once a week, when we're really rolling. And we'll talk about kind of tips and tricks, and maybe not tricks, but just, always have walkie-talkies is a good trick. Actually, I
walkie-talkies.
Yeah, encourage walkie-talkies. But Bill and I have forgotten the walkie-talkies, or they haven't been charged, and we've been doing the whole just an hour-long phone call, which I'm sure is going to be good on our minutes. But if you got the AirPods, it actually works really good.
Yeah, it actually works better than the walkie-talkies. I recommend it.
Except for when Bill drops his phone off the ATV. And he didn't know where it fell, but I heard it fall on my headphones, so I'm running. I'm like, they're right here. It's got to be right here. So I looked and I found his phone, and it was in perfect shape, just slightly damp in the wet grass, the flooded grass. So thank goodness we found it.
I thought that was long gone.
Your heart probably sank, huh?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And then out of courtesy for the next time and then the next couple times that he drove to the next location to throw a mark, he was muting it so that I didn't have to listen to it. I was like, hey, Bill, don't do that. Because if it falls off again, I want to be able to tell you right here is where it fell off. We can go find it. So, but hey, so that's a little early, but that is a good trick. I think I like that a little bit more. So we might do that when it's just the 2 of us. But I don't remember where we were going. That totally. Were you done with your intro? Or we talked about Reggie. That's how I got there.
Yeah, we were talking about Reggie a little bit.
Yeah. So
we have high hopes for Reggie. We'll see.
We have very high hopes for Reggie. He's going to turn out good. He's out of Justin Hergert's Chief, and he's a really good dog. So he's got a lot of go, which we're always trying to make sure we manage. But he's got a lot of go, and he's really good. Well, let's shift into talking about the Judges Seminar. So we went to Kankakee River HRC Judges Seminar. They do it every other year I think it's so that they get current, because every other year you have to go to a Judges Seminar. And I have to say, it was one of the highlights of my winter. I'm not going to lie. And as a student of the game, all right.
Chris, that says a lot about you, my friend.
Well, Bill, you and I went on a lot of good hunts. So, but it was wait, I get to sit, and there's a huge group of people who all like HRC, and I get to talk about the game, and we get to ask a bunch of questions. And I was like, And I was positive that everybody wanted me to walk out of there because I was going to make that meeting go like 27 hours because I was just like, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
It was like, you know how like you walk up to the grand and like no what or to a handling, you know, the handlers meeting. They're like, no what if questions or no what happens if this happens, because like they just go on forever. Well, at the judges seminar, you can ask all of those. So I was happy as could be. It was great. So I wanted to go to the judges seminar because I want to give back and judge. I'm not sure if that was the reason that you guys wanted to go to the judges seminar, but just like to hear why you guys ended up going. We'll start with Josh this time.
So yeah, kind of the same thing for me. You know, I do have some weekends that would be free here and there, and yeah, if I can get back a little bit, that would be great. It's more of a long-term project for me, but there's no time like the present to get started with that. And a lot of people, you see them on Facebook, would ask a question and people would say, you need to go to a judge's handler seminar. It'll answer all those questions. And I definitely agree. I think that it answered a lot of those questions for me as well. That's kind of why I went.
Yeah, well, for me, it was I really don't plan on doing judging. A lot of respect for judges and time that goes into it. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I've just always heard it was a good idea for handlers just to go to judges seminar. You learn a lot more about sort of how the rules are interpreted and some of the things you think you know and thought you know and knew and don't. And so that's why I went. And I think, you know, it was pretty much 5 years too late. I should have done that a long time ago in the game, but better late than never. And yeah, I thought it was worthwhile. Learned a lot. Good group. That's a great club. Kentucky's a good club and fun group of people.
Yeah. Well, what were some of the things that you all learned that you thought was pretty interesting and would be good for the rest of the retriever world to know about?
Well, I've got one that still bothers me because I think we had a little debate about it. I think it was with Tyler we had a debate about it, which is that you can touch your dog to steady before you say ready.
Okay, and just for the record, did you? I know Josh missed this question on the quiz. Did you miss this question on the quiz too, Bill?
Which one?
This specific question.
I didn't, because that was near and dear to my heart, because I was at the Grand, I think, in St. Louis a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I did that with Gus. I sat down at the bucket. I petted him just on his head to kind of relax him. And before I even just turned around to the judges to say ready, the guy goes, "Don't touch your dog," you know, real loud. And
scared you.
Say that threw me off for the rest of that series. But so it was. I was very interested to hear that actually is a rule, and I don't think too many people know that one.
Yeah, and so it's such a non-known rule that it is the only question I missed on the quiz. Even though it was open book, I still got it wrong, yeah. and so did Josh. So I personally think that the question was worded in a tough way, because I knew the rule that you could touch your dog before you started the test, because that was discussed for a very long time in the judges seminar. But the way the question was worded was like, can you touch your dog in a finish test? And I was like, well, before you start, but it didn't say that, you know? And so Anyway, I feel like they tricked me to not getting 100%, but maybe that's my competitive nature coming out. I still passed. Yeah. You had to get a 70% of that. Is that right? I'd have to look that up, but I think it's so. Yeah. But yeah, so you can touch your dog as long as it's before you start the test, which I thought was interesting, because the test starts when you come out of the holding blind or at that designated area where the judges say start. So it's before you initiate for the birds to come out, I think, is what they're saying.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're still under judgment before that, but you're telling the judge you're ready for the birds to drop. So.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. We did discuss that a lot. I was trying to think like if that was valuable for people to know. I mean, I guess it is if that calming thing is important. I just don't touch my dog. I do remember one time I accidentally touched a dog in an upland test, to tell him to go get the bird, to hunt it up. And afterwards, the judge is like, "Hey, this is like your fourth one this weekend. You touched your dog. I didn't give you a hard time about it, but don't ever touch your dog again." I was like, "Okay." Yeah. So if that judge is listening, I won't say his name.
I think the derivation of it is mostly intimidation.
Yeah, that's where.
And I never do either. I don't do it with Cooper, and I never did it before with Gus. I tried it at the Grant. Not a good idea to try anything for the first time at the Grant, but I did. But because I just thought, because him, he needs a little bit of calming, and even though he doesn't manifest it necessarily at first, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to just stroke him a little bit in the back of his head and see if that helps. Judge didn't like it, but I think I was right. But c'est la vie.
Is the Grand different? Do you know that? Did we discuss that in the seminar? I can't remember. I don't think it is.
Rule, but that's actually a good question. I don't think they would change that for the Grand, but
yeah, I don't know. If you're listening and you know the answer to that question,
I just think it's a common misconception.
Yeah, it's definitely for finished for sure. Well, for any of the levels up to finished, we know for sure you can touch your dog before you signal for the birds, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that at all. Josh, you got one?
I think Bill makes a good point about being there 5 years too late, for sure. There was a lot to learn there, and a lot of things that I think, kind of as we were talking, I look around the room and I could see the look on other people's faces, and it seemed like a lot of the things we talked about, you could see people are like, oh no, like they have a story about that had they known previously, a day probably would have turned out a little different from. That was a big takeaway for me.
I just keep thinking, Bill, with you as an attorney, I can't believe you didn't turn around and be like, according to HRC section 1245, I can touch my dog until I signal. But is that how you would handle that in a real situation? Would you turn into lawyer mode, Bill?
I don't think so. I'm probably too nervous to do that, to be honest.
Well, we can't tell some of the stories that you've told me about your lawyer days on the podcast.
This is about hunting retrievers.
But it is a good subject over Culver's, which is Tyler's favorite restaurant. If you're ever wondering, he's all about it. I think my favorite part was that it started 2 minutes early, and that was completely my fault. And Josh wasn't there yet because Josh and I had a conversation the night before, and I thought Josh wasn't coming. So they said, "All right, I think we're just still missing Josh. Is Josh coming?" I said, "I don't think he's coming. We can start without him." And then we were sitting down. I didn't save a spot for Josh or nothing. And then all of a sudden, Josh comes walking in on time, but he felt like he wasn't on time because we had started early. So. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
It goes way back to Sandwich High School and before.
Yeah.
Josh.
A little bit of a horror moment for me. Yeah. I walked up the stairs and I turned and I could see in that little window in the doorway and the whole room is dark and the overhead projector's on. I'm like, oh no.
You were on time. That's the best part. You're on time.
Yeah, which never happens. I thought for sure. I've been to enough HRC events. I'm like, these guys will be drinking coffee and finishing up their donuts, and they'll start like 5 minutes late. No,
they were serious about the time. I mean, they were so concerned about the time, and that's why the whole time I kept asking questions. I'm waiting for them, somebody to beat me with a baseball bat and say, "Just get Chris out of here." So, anyway, it was amazing. I just have to say that it was really cool. One thing.
You asked a lot of good questions. There were a lot of good questions from a lot of people.
Yeah, there was a lot of good questions, especially some of the upland questions were really interesting, and you could see some of the people that are in Kankakee River, they run it, like Matt and those guys, they were thinking how can we set up tests differently based on what they heard in the judges seminar, and I can't remember if we actually did it. So they do their upland test at Dan and Tyler's at Green Acres, and they talked about how they could handle the walk up. And I don't know if we actually ended up doing it, but they talked about you could, by the rules, which would be really efficient. Obviously as a judge, they talked about efficiency a lot and how to set up tests so that you can, make sure you get all your dogs through and all that stuff. But with upland, you could do the first flush of the next dog as an honor. And I thought that was like really efficient because you could not prop them up, but perhaps put them on a little bit of an elevated hill or something so they can see, and they don't actually have to walk up. Or sorry, the honor. Did I say walk up? I meant the honor. You can do the honor as an honor to the live flush, which could be like really efficient rather than having to do the whole coordinated honor walk up that you do normally. But there's a lot of discussion about things like that. So I thought that was kind of fun. We got to dream about like how you could set up tests. Well, the big thing for me, one of the big things, there's a lot of big things, was, they made the comment like when setting up a test, like this is what they went through and said, make sure that as a judge, you're doing this. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So is this legal and is it safe is the first thing that you have to look at as a judge. Oh, hey, Tyler's joining us a little bit early, but that's okay. He can listen to about the Great Judges Seminar. And the next one was, where does the test begin? Does every bird thrown serve a purpose? Was the big one, right? So we have to make sure that we, as judges, every bird is being set up. And then the other one that they talked about is the difference between the hunt area and the area of the fall, which I had never, I know, like, if you're in and it breaks down of how you judge it. So the hunt area is basically, a larger area of where that bird fell. And if your dog makes progress to the hunt area and then makes it into the area of the fall, that is way better than perhaps like they're not in the designated hunt area. They run way far to the right. They run way too far to the right when the wind's going left to right and they're out of what the designated hunt area is and they wind it and run over. They could almost consider that as the dog had stumbled on the bird because he's not even in the hunt area. And then even smaller than that is the area of the fall. And the difference is about, did the dog mark the bird, make his way into that hunt area and then to the area of the fall. And in judges in handling situations at, tests and stuff, they never talk about the hunt area, but the judges set that ahead of time in their mind. They work and say, okay, this is our hunt area. And that's how they judge whether the dog even like marked the bird. Because there's been times where, I can think about a specific Chessie that Tyler ran one time that literally, I think, covered the entire field like an upland test. And the judges had to come to Tyler and be like, yeah, I don't think that dog, I think it was a she, I don't think that dog marked that bird. And it's because of defining a hunt area and then the area of the fall. And for the audience, there's nothing that you, like if you handle in the hunt area, that is a handle to the bird, and that will count as your marginal for that test. But if the dog is in the area of the fall, like that even smaller predefined area, and you handle, then you're considered handled in the area, and that is considered that the dog marked that bird, but just couldn't produce it, and then you helped it in the area of the fall. So that is subjective, but the judges are supposed to together define what those two areas are for each bird, which I thought was really, really interesting. And another thing that I thought was interesting. Well, you guys got one other one you want to jump in with?
Well, I was just going to say, related to that area of the fall, area of the hunt, we talked a little bit about switching and sort of the differences between, switching meaning the dog has established the hunt in the area of a fall and then switches to another area of a fall. And it got a little confusing as to whether or not, first of all, establishing a hunt is a little subjective, but we've all seen it and you should know it when you see it. But in HRC, or AKC rather, from what I understand, that dog establishes a hunt in area of the fall on bird one, and doesn't produce and switches over and picks up bird two, that's a fail. Whereas I think in HRC, they were telling us it's not good, but it's not necessarily a fail. And I'm not the expert on that, but that's what I recall from the seminar, and I thought that was helpful to understand, because I mean it's very, I guess, up to the interpretation of the judges on a lot of issues when that happens.
Yeah. Josh, anything else you wanted to add?
No, not really. I think you guys kind of covered that. But it is.
Well, just anything that you thought was interesting.
We're talking about area of the fall, Chris.
No, we're moving on. We got that. We covered that. We got to keep this moving. We got a lot to accomplish today.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Bill, were you going to say another one? Or did I lose you?
No, I think those are the key things I remember from it.
Yeah. The one thing that I also thought was kind of interesting is that judges, that they're encouraging judges to get away from saying, we'll judge the test accordingly, which I thought was really interesting, because the whole thing is subjective anyway, to some degree. And I was thinking about scenarios where it's like, yeah, you have to intervene on the dog's side in XYZ scenario. But anyway, we don't have like a ton of specific things that we thought were really, specific from the judges seminar. I just would say, if you're listening to this and you're part of an HRC club and your club or a neighboring club is putting on one, go. It was really, really helpful, and to me, it was a blast. And I really am surprised they didn't kick me out, because I probably, how many questions do you guys think I asked? Could you even count?
I don't know. It sounded very similar to like at a hunt test with you and Dan or Tyler going off on a tangent about something that's way over my head in terms of the details. You probably asked a lot, maybe 10.
Oh, it was more than 10.
Oh, 20. Okay.
Josh, was it more than, it was over under on 10?
It was probably over 10, but somebody had to get the conversation going. And so it's, in that situation, it's good to have somebody in there who's not afraid to ask the questions, because I think once you started asking questions, like, then the discussion started. And for me, some of those things, maybe once he explained them, I was a little fuzzy on it. And then once we started talking about it, now it's like, oh, okay, I understand exactly. Once you hear a couple examples, right? So I think the discussion was a really important part of it.
Yeah.
Although I was ready to go and you were taking my time.
Another thing that I thought was really cool was the Mark Driscoll's video at the beginning. Do you guys remember that? Mark Driscoll's the founder of HRC, and he recorded him like stating why we do this judges seminar and all this thing, and I was like pumped up. It was almost like America, not quite, but it was just like it was like an HRC pump up video, man. It was awesome. I'm sure that's available somewhere.
I think I might have seen that through the window of the door.
The what?
The window of the door when I was walking into.
Oh yeah. That's probably accurate. But it was really cool. The other thing that was interesting, if you guys are interested in becoming a judge, the process is you go to a judge's seminar, you pass the test, which is it's an open book test, and you can call anybody you want to call. And it was actually interesting. Like sometimes people would bring up questions in the judges seminar, and Dan, who was the not Dan Erke, Dan Sistma, I think is how you say his name. What'd you say? Dean. What? Oh my gosh, Dean. It was Dean. I'm sorry, I typed that wrong in my notes. That's terrible of me. Yeah, and then I ran into Dean at the Upland test, and we talked a little bit more. I was like, "We're back. I can keep asking you questions," and then he walked away. So, he was tired of me. But Dean was calling other reps and other people to get answers to the questions. So if you're nervous about becoming a judge, everything was open book. You can. Oh, that was another thing that I liked a lot. If you're pursuing being a judge, they give you basically what you say at the beginning of every hunt test, which was something I was nervous about. Like they give you like the whole script on what you're supposed to say and go through, which I feel like I could repeat it because I've done so many tests, but I'm sure as soon as I get up there and I got 30 people looking at me, I'm gonna be like, so like they said, yeah, just pick it up and start reading. Oh, it's right here. Started test briefing right there. And they gave you this awesome book that is the entire judge's rule book. So I'm going to carry this around with me. I'm going to put it in my trailer, which nobody will ever see a picture of. And I'll have it. It's funny. That's becoming a running joke since I mentioned that in the first podcast of the year. Is anytime I share a picture with vaguely to the group with the trailer in the background, like, oh, whoa, Chris is showing his trailer. I'm like, shut up, guys. I'm trying to show you the dog doing something. Anyway, that's been good. Well, I'm trying to unmute Tyler. Now I can't. Maybe you muted yourself? Oh, there we go. Got you unmuted here. So now we got Tyler joining us. So we got Tyler Brenner and Tyler, welcome.
Howdy.
Good. You can hear. We can hear you. I was a little worried about you. But see, for those that can't see in the podcast, Tyler has the AirPods on. So I think we could do it without.
I had to steal them from my wife. You know, this is the most high tech we get out in the boonies. So.
Well, you missed the first part of the podcast where I was talking about how Bill needs to get a pair because we never have charged walkie-talkies and the phone call works really good. Yeah. But I
am going to get a pair.
He dropped his phone off the ATV, and the only reason we found it is because I heard the sound fall off and the ATV get further away at Sharon's. I was on the big hill on the north side, and I just started running.
So you could track where it was.
So I could track where it was, and I found it. So, but it worked really well. Like it was really easy because we were just like talking and stuff, and it worked out.
As you
great.
could imagine, I lost my pair of AirPods. So
yeah, surprise. Surprise. Well, we're going to transition. We just wanted to cover quickly the Judges Seminar, and then we want to spend a few minutes talking about how to train as a group and just things that are helpful for training with your group and tips and things like that. So I'll kind of, we're just going to roundtable this, but I'll kind of start us off with something that I think is really important. And that is we all have an understanding that if a dog is having a problem with something, we don't move on until that dog has success in the scenario. And sometimes that means putting the dog up and giving them a break if they're just getting too tired on something, like you're doing like a long watermark and they've done it 3 times and they can't do it right. Well, you can put them up, but we always plan to bring them out. And a lot of times we have the younger dogs that require a lot more attention because maybe we're working on, walking to the bucket or things like that. And I was thinking about Josh with Reggie. Like we all know as a group what we're trying to accomplish with Reggie, which is getting him to be a good citizen, getting to and from the bucket. And we have a plan every time. And we spend a lot of the time just doing that. And he sometimes doesn't get marks that day because we're just focusing on making sure that if we're having a problem with somebody, with a specific dog, that we spend the time that's necessary to address that. And if some dogs get the shaft, like Cooper, and I had a terrible day with Winter trying to get this one mark done. Tyler, this was after you left and you went to throw this triple.
So it's my fault.
Yeah, it's all your fault. Yeah. Winter couldn't do this mark, and we tried 3 or 4 times, and we were running out of light. We finally got her to do it. And then we threw it for Coop, and he couldn't see it. And so Coop got the shaft for that day. So we already had done something else. It wasn't like that was the only thing we did with Cooper. But Bill, next time we made sure that we added that back in so we were able to throw it for Cooper. But you have to, once you, like, I kind of like our motto is like, once you start something with a dog, you got to finish, you got to have success. And we all know that and understand that. And we just try to make sure that over time, the scales balance. And we all know that because I know that the pressure that you feel being that guy that's having to do something with your dog over and over and over doesn't feel great, but it feels a heck of a lot better when you know that the people that are doing this with you understand that, hey, this is a fluke or this is something we know we're going to need to work on. And we just have a common understanding of what's going on. And I think that's really important. We kind of know that because we train together all the time. But if you're training with a new group, make sure you kind of clearly state what you're trying to accomplish with a specific dog.
Yeah, and I would even say, like, just don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in and the program you're doing with your dog. If you introduce yourself to a new group and you aren't sure how they train, like, if my dog moves, I'm not giving the dog the bird. And I apologize, but I'm going to need you to go pick up that bird. And that's something a lot of people run into. They hate asking someone to go pick the bird up. Well, we use denial in our training constantly, and a lot of people don't. And to each their own. But don't be afraid to ask somebody, hey, I'm sorry, could you go pick that bird up, and deny the dog. Don't just give in because you don't want to inconvenience the other person. And that goes into like just having a good relationship with your training group.
Yeah.
That's a good
You can ruin
point.
your dog that way.
I think because people have a tendency to, especially with a new group, to not do that, to just kind of like, oh, well, that sucked and move on. And so, yeah, it's better to give everybody a heads up, too, that this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. And they may have ideas for you as well you want to try with somebody else.
Yeah, you just can't give up your standard for conformity.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
And one of the things we always make sure that we are always doing is that if somebody has a question, we try to address it in the moment because it's fresh in everybody's mind, and we can really show it. And so sometimes educating the person is just as important as educating, educating the dog, as we train.
I'll add that if you're a guy that's around my age, it's a good idea to have younger guys with you or gals who have better eyesight. So when you're running 400-yard blinds and you start hearing your buddy say, make him sit. And I'm like, I can't even see the dog. So, it's very helpful to have somebody that can do that for you. So young people do.
So what? Just to add more to what Bill's talking about, his dog Coop has developed this problem where at the end of a blind, if Bill blows the whistle but the dog still feels like he can find it, he won't sit. And there's been so much repetition of Bill not being able to tell if his dog is sitting because it's so close to it's so far away. We're talking probably 200 to 300 yards plus. Yeah. What we're talking about, and Bill just can't quite see what the dog's doing, and it's a yellow lab on dead grass. I mean, it's like really not great. But the dog won't sit at the end of this blind. And so I've been just yelling, make him sit, make him sit, make him sit. And the way that you do that is you just keep single tweeting Nick, tweet Nick until the dog finally stabilizes, even if he already has the bird in his mouth. But I'm not sure what to do because if I don't remember, the dog gets away with it every time. So we're trying to figure out what we can do. Like give him Bill some binoculars like every time. But then, anyway.
Cataracts.
Needs a seeing eye, Chris.
Yeah. Well, we were even talking about like, can we get, is it allowed if I go, like, he's like, can you sit behind me and just tell me what to do? I was like, I don't think I can do that.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I won't name names.
Oh, Tyler does it for me a lot.
Not just you.
He jumps right in there, whether I even want him to or not.
Yeah. Another good thing about being in a group that, you have a varying set of skills is, it keeps it really interesting and fun, and we can talk through things. So there's times where a specific dog is doing something and we'll just stop. We'll just all stop what we're doing and we'll just discuss it for a bit, which I find that's really really beneficial just to kind of slow down and make sure you're doing that. There's a little bit of a debate whether you should have a plan before you show up or not. Josh, you want to talk about that a little bit? We're having a text debate going on right now.
Yeah, I'd like to see a plan for Monday night training. I'd like to see that sucker by about 5 o'clock Sunday night. That way I can look at it. Whoever gets there first can start setting it up maybe, make a little better use of our time instead of getting there and then talking about it for 30, 40 minutes and then talking about other things.
Josh doesn't like talking, guys. That's what he's getting at.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It may not seem like
Josh is at a loss for words,
Yeah. He's not like, I figured like we just get Josh on, he'll just talk like normal like the whole time. Like the mic's on and he's just like, yep. Which when you meet Josh in person, like we lost Josh two like was it 2 training days ago or there was somebody else working on a car at Sharon's and I pulled up and I waved at Josh.
Gone.
We ran like 20 dogs, and then Josh pulls up as we're packing up and moving to like the last little thing. And he's like, "What's going on, guys?" I was like, "We're done."
And he was restoring a 90 Chevy truck. I really like those, so I thought I'd stop and talk shop and make a new friend, and I did.
Yeah, you did, and you got us the mannequin, which was good to get the mannequin out of Sharon's. There's three mannequins in there. The one we grabbed, I didn't realize it, but when we put it out in the sunlight, she had shot it, or somebody had shot it. It's got a bunch of BBs in it.
Dick Cheney'd it.
She totally just got mad and just shot it or something. I don't know. Yeah, probably the grandkids. It probably wasn't Sharon, but you could just tell somebody was pissed at the mannequin.
It looked intentional. Definitely looked intentional.
A plan would be good, but I have a feeling there'd be a lot of feedback, and I don't know.
Tyler, I'm curious your opinion on the whole plan before we show up. Which, okay, I will state before we get too deep into this, I think for younger dogs, it's great to have a plan. Like, I think because you know what you're trying to cover, you know what you're trying to do. But as the dogs get older, and you've kind of, not saying you've taught them everything, but you've taught them a lot, you really got to let the grounds speak to you. That's
honestly, yeah, that's a great way of putting that, because what I do a lot of times is like, so I'll give you an example of what I do at Green Acres. I get on the ATV and I drive around. Where can I get my truck? That's my first problem. Where can I get my truck without burying it to the frame? All right. Secondly, what have my dogs been weak on right now? So like my last trip to Sharon's, the things I noticed were hillsides. They were falling down the hillsides really bad, squaring that slope. And I've worked on that a lot this week in the few places that I have the hillsides like that, and I've seen a massive improvement. Now, it's been really cold, haven't been doing any water now, because I think part of that was a little bit of I saw squaring in the water on the exits, I saw squaring down the hill in general. So I've been doing like a 4-pole drill through cover changes on a slope, stuff like that, right? But sometimes you don't know you have a problem until you just go do something random. You're like, oh,
yeah,
right.
That's a great
and I like
point.
that. I love that, because like when I go over there with you guys, it's like, all right, Chris, just set something up, or I'll just set something up. Like one of us just decides, okay, we're doing this, and everybody runs it. And this is older dogs, not young developing dogs. These are finished grand dogs, whatever. And if you didn't do that, I wouldn't know I have problems. If I didn't run a field trial with Widow when she was younger and watch her like blow up on flyers, like who would have thought I would have had a problem with a flyer? Just put the massive Hunt on for no reason whatsoever. I would have never known if I didn't go. So whether it's running a training setup that you didn't decide what to do, whether it's obviously if you have a dog that's under control, just going and running a test, you're going to see things that you don't see if you set up your training, because your dog gets used to those things. Like I'll go train with Dan one day during the week, and I'll be like, oh, if I was over here, I probably would have set up this. And then I run my dog, and my dog runs to that location like as if I would have put something there. It's amazing what they'll do. And you'll see that constantly. But you'll never notice it. You'll never notice it if you don't force yourself to just step outside that box. And I think that as a group, we force ourselves to do that in different ways. And we all have a little bit different thought process, and we all have a little different dogs, right?
Yeah.
They're all over the board. So.
Yep. Well, I end up setting up a lot of the times, like deciding on the setup. But one thing that I'm always trying to do, and I'm asking for feedback on this a lot, is I'm thinking about, okay, if we go to this part of the grounds, what can we do with, Reggie, who's our youngest dog that's like through, in transition. Okay, what can I do with the puppies that I have right now? What does Winter need? Where is Bill's dog's going to be? If Tyler's here, we kind of let him do what he's going to want, because he only gets to train at this grounds once a week, maybe, versus, Bill and I, and sometimes Josh are there 4 days a week. But I'm always thinking about all the dogs that we're going to run, and how can I make sure that there's something structured for each dog to get. And even the way that we set up vehicles sometimes, plays a part in it. Like with Reggie, we're doing a lot of walk-ups right now, and that was something that was in the judges seminar, was seasoned is a walking test. which they said. And I thought that was really interesting because it's totally true. You are going to walk a ton with seasoned. And what is the thing that you see and started in the season is you see dogs, ripping their handlers' arms off. It's just like, okay. And so we're really trying to work on that with Reggie. He had a season of hunting where he did awesome. He's picked up, tons and tons of birds at tower shoots. So we're trying to bring him back into the control that our group has as a standard. And so we're doing a ton of walk-ups to get control. And a lot of times we park vehicles in a certain way so that Bill can be behind one, Josh can be behind the other. And here's a really good thing. If you have a consistent group, we all have signals that we know, so we don't have to say anything when we're trying to do stuff. So a lot of times it's just a head nod or, like, hey, when we say, hey, when I turn, I'm not going to say anything. Just if I turn and the dog looks steady, throw the bird. And another thing is that our throwers for dogs like Reggie that we're teaching how to do walk-ups and we're teaching how to be really steady is the thrower signals the handler to send the dog. Because the handler is sometimes on those walk-ups, it's hard for them to see. Is the dog truly sitting? Is it hovering? What's it doing with its feet? It's hard to see when you're looking down at the dog. So a lot of times when we're doing that with young dogs is the handler will actually nod. And then like Josh running Reggie, Josh will send the dog at that point. And then there's a lot of denial and we don't even have to say anything. Like, we're doing that walk up and we see the dog move. We don't waste any time. We try to be as efficient as possible. The thrower is running, picking up that bird and being ready to reset. It's like this, when Tyler and I have the most experience of training together, but when we're doing it and watching Dan and Tyler together is like amazing. It's like a work of art of watching them. Like they don't even say anything to each other, but they just know exactly what each other's thinking. We're getting to that with our group and we're able to, be really, really efficient when we train. Bill, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts from doing like a lot of what I used to do, which is training alone, to now, you're retired, you're driving an hour and 10 minutes most days to come train with us. What is some of the things that you think, have been really good to do training in a group?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm a fan of your videos on training by yourself and a lot of the techniques you use, and I've made up a lot of them on my own. Because I spent quite a bit of time training by myself, and I would go to club trainings and with a group here or there. But yeah, I mean, going with a steady group that you have a lot of those intangibles that you're speaking of. You just kind of know what you're supposed to do, and I've learned a tremendous amount from you guys just about how to be a bird boy. And you may still have complaints, but I think I'm a lot better than I used to be. But there is a lot of nuances to that, depending on the age of the dog, et cetera, as you know. So,
yeah,
I mean, for me, it's picking up a lot of that stuff, a lot of nuances that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
And of course, listening to Josh, he makes me laugh.
So we have kind of a running joke that Josh sits in his toothpick man chair and just toothpick talks the whole time, which I didn't even hear of the toothpick talk. Where'd that come from and what is that?
Wasn't it a TikTok video?
I don't know. This seems like a you and Tyler
video
deal
or something like that.
Toothpick man, yeah.
Yeah, toothpick man. It was basically somebody who's got all this wisdom that's just like total BS. Got like these weird sayings that don't really mean anything.
I aspire to be one day. And I'm really old.
You just keep listening, Bill. I'll get you headed that direction.
That's what Tony with the S10 was thinking the whole time. This is a toothpick man.
Yeah.
But Tyler, I'm sure you have thoughts. What other thoughts do you think is important for group training?
Being respectful and just trying to contribute. Every one of these dogs that we run is somebody's best friend, and their every living moment thought everything to them. So when you got to know when to critique somebody. You have to have a certain relationship with them to give that advice, even if it's not wanted. Like if you have an outstanding problem that I personally see that you need to address and you're not aware of it, like there's a certain way of coming about to bring it up, right? Don't go, Chris, what are you doing, man?
Well, he's done that a few times, though.
And it's because I love you and you're my friend and I love your dog. And, if there's a flaming issue, it needs to get addressed, obviously. But there's ways of doing it and not doing it. I've seen everything you could ever imagine. And you're going to hurt people's feelings sometimes, and that's just part of it. But try to take everything as a grain of salt. Everyone has a different opinion. And just try and stick to a certain program that you feel fit is good for you. Don't be a program hopper. It never works out for you. And more importantly, it doesn't work out for the dog in the long run, but learning how to be coachable as well is very tough. We all have ego, and that's what drives a lot of us to do these things. And sometimes you just got to put them aside and train the dog you have in front of you and not the one you want. And that is some words of wisdom I've heard from Dan over and over, and I'll stick with it forever because it's the truth. It's super important to be able to just put the ego aside and be like, okay, I have to take baby steps backwards or big steps backwards and then take baby steps forwards, essentially. Yeah. Like what you've gone through with winter is a prime example. It's like, well, this sucks, but I have to do it. Yep. So,
and I want to just two things that you said that I thought was really nice. One is, we all have the same program, pretty much. Like at this point, we're all following the same, the same process. Developed by Dan that I would say Tyler and I have continually worked on with Dan and added, but we pretty much do the same thing. Most of it's Dan's. Well, we all know that, but if you're in a group and we've invited other folks to train with us that don't do it the same way, and when those folks are there, we're like, what do you want us to do to fit with what you have been teaching that your dog knows? And I think go ahead.
It's crazy. Like when you show somebody that little bit of we're willing to work with whatever you want to do. They don't know how to act.
Yeah.
Because they've never been talked to like that. They're just like, what do you mean you're going to tailor to me?
Yeah. I would say that's a great point, that if all that you take away from this is do what, Tyler's gone. Oh, he's back. Tailor, get in a group that you tailor what you're doing to the dog. Tailor to that specific situation. And I think everybody will be happier for it. The other thing is having like Tyler. I was thinking of Tyler when you were talking about that specific like knowing when to say something to another person.
Yeah.
I remember many times where you were telling me, "Whoa, what are you doing?" But I remember this one time you threw this channel mark for Widow. Do you remember this at Sharon's?
Yeah. That was a hard one. That was not fair.
So the dog, he ran this once and I let it run. I was like, okay, we'll run it because he wanted to run it. I was like, fine. And the dog on a 250-yard watermark with a channel that is probably 20 yards wide. Would you say it's 20 yards wide, Tyler, at the end?
It's less than that.
It's okay, 15. 15 yards. The bird lands at the end of this little 15-yard channel, and the dog has swam at least 125 yards, okay? And his dog doesn't get dry, but her feet touch the ground. And he handles and puts her back on the center of the channel. And he did it 2 times, and I finally said, "You're not running this again." And I drove up there and I said, "There's no way your dog can distinguish the difference of what you're trying to do right now.
Stay wet, girl, stay wet."
And I was like, dude, you need to just chill out right now. And you weren't mad, but you were
I was like, I'm going to demand this excellence. And there's a point where it's like, okay, what am I going to gain from this? Jack diddly squat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also to have a good training group that understands when you accidentally put your collar in your back pocket and don't realize it, but you turned it from a 3 to an 8, and then when you shock your, you try to correct your dog and they jump out of their skin and you go, "Oh, sorry guys," and you say on the radio, "Yeah, that's at an 8 and it's supposed to be at a 3." They understand that you're not trying to abuse your dog and you made an honest mistake, which may have happened.
Mistakes never happen.
Which may have happened recently, where I felt terrible after it happened. I was like, "Whoa, why did that reaction happen?" I looked down, oh shoot. So don't do that. Don't check your collar before you say back. It's a good thing to do.
Or if you switch dogs.
Oh, I'm sure that happens to pros a lot. I have 2 different collars for which dog I'm running.
Yeah. We run multiple transmitters because it just obviously you can run more than one collar on a transmitter, and it's just like you said, it's a lot safer.
Especially a Garmin when you got a little toggle. It's between the 2 colors. I mean, easy to
Dan will even run a Sport Pro, and then he'll run the 550 because he doesn't want to mix up one or the other.
Yeah. But there's nothing worse than either feeling helpless, like this dog isn't getting the correction it needs, or I just blew this dog out of the water. That's never fun.
No.
Well, Josh, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, as far as a benefit of a training group, I think it's been greatly beneficial for me to have somebody kind of stand over my shoulder and see the things that I can't see all the time. Sometimes you guys do overwhelm me a little bit, but it's nice.
It's all about the approach.
Guidance. What's that?
It's all about the approach. You gotta and there's times where you can't talk to people in the moment. You gotta let them cool off if they're frustrated and talk to them later about it. It'll be too much of a confrontation initially. I go through that a lot.
Man, I know you don't like carrying that duck, but you've got to carry that duck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking about one of my favorite parts about training in the group is seeing success. And it's not I remember when Gus passed the Grand. Was it 2 spring? Last spring? Was it last spring?
Yeah,
last spring. Tyler, you ran him, but Bill, you did so much of the work, and to think about all the birds that I've thrown for that dog, and to see him get that big green ribbon. That was a really cool feeling. That's great, but I love seeing the progress that Reggie has had from Josh, remember when we were upland training out at I was like, this dog has forgotten everything. He doesn't remember a single thing. And we I'm like, what? I know this dog knew this stuff, but he does not remember, and it was when the dog doesn't even realize what he's doing wrong. That's where we were. We were walking up and the dog was just stopping and he was so steady, but he was just standing straight up and he had no clue that he wasn't sitting. So we did, we just worked through it with a pinch collar, just gave him a little lift up and then Josh went home and worked on it. And we've been progressively chipping away at that problem to where he's becoming a very respectable man around the bucket.
Yeah, he's looking great last week.
But that to me is what I love about having a good training group, is that I get just as much satisfaction. Well, maybe not as much, but quite a bit of satisfaction as I do when my dog does something great. But it really is
I think it's more.
You're a better person than me, okay, Tyler? Jeez.
No, that's not what it is, man. It's it's full circle. And I'll tell you, for me, for example, passing Gus at the Grand means 100 times more than passing Widow to me. That is 100 times more. Just, it means a lot. That dog's put in years and years, and obviously the dog doesn't know he passed. Well, maybe that dog does, but a lot of them don't. But you know what I mean? It's such a full circle moment of success, and obviously we want to get it again. So,
well, he's a poster boy. He's a poster boy example for you as a professional trainer as to what happens and how long it takes if you start off with just the book.
Well, and
I mean, do it all yourself.
Well, and think about this is kind of the conversation we were talking about having too, Chris, of the unconventional training methods. I think I run Gus when I had him, I ran him without a collar probably 90% of the time. And obviously that's not something we do consistently. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just, I had to go to different methods because he's smart. He's collar smart. changed the game on how to train that dog and how to get him on my team, which was 99% positive reinforcement and 1% pressure, right?
And to add to that story, remember when we were pre-grand training and we found the hole, the hole?
The diversion bird?
So, yeah, this is a perfect example of what we were talking about
Crazy.
before. So, I don't remember why, but I was like, I haven't done a diversion bird in a while. And I was like, we just need to do one. Like, we're pre-grand training. We need to do a diversion bird. And I ran it, and, winter was fine. And then we did it with Gus without the collar, and he completely reverted to a poop hole. And I had never seen it before.
Sliding in to
Spontaneous recovery at its finest. That was like textbook.
Oh my gosh, he just spit out that bird and just was going. And I was like, whoa, where'd this come from? Because I train with a dog almost every day, and I never see anything that blatant.
Yeah.
But we caught him. Tyler jumped into that water so fast. It was like, and I was too shell shocked. I was like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
But we discovered the prime thing. And then even when we put a collar on that diversion bird, what came into play, it was clear that the diversion was a trigger that Gus thought he was at a test. Whether the collar was on him,
all it does is prove to us that we don't do them enough in training. That's a prime example. If you take anything away from this podcast, it's that nobody does enough diversion birds in training.
I don't know if that's entirely true, but
not me.
But there is. I don't do enough diversion birds, but I do throw them because every once in a while I'm just like, I'm gonna just do all the things that I never do, and I'm just gonna put them in, because it's just a lot of work. Another thing that I think is helpful is that last thing, and we probably should end this, is make your go bird a winger if you want to do a multiple, and have your helper as the memory bird. And more than likely probably put 2 wingers just in case you need help on that go bird. But that's a big thing. And Bill and I screwed that up a couple weeks ago just because we were like, we're going to do it in this order. And then we switched the order, and then we had a problem with one dog. But so do as I say, not as we do. I could have just kept that quiet. Nobody would have known about it. That would have been better, right?
Yeah.
But I have zero filter. So there's
I tell you what, me and Dan talked about doing the next couple weeks. We're going to try and get together and throw a triple for every dog, like every week up to the grand, and just take it away. Like cycle through all the dogs, throw a triple, take it away. Like every dog in the truck that's running the grand or finished dog.
See, those are the kinds of things that the group context between you guys has been so helpful. Not to keep harping on Gus, but the other thing was with him getting sticky at the test, and you start throwing birds on the way back from the line for the dog.
Yeah, all the way to the trailer.
That little thing. If I had known that 6 years ago, we would be in a different position. It's just, and that was invaluable. And in his case, it came late in his life, but fantastic.
Essentially, what Bill is referring to is the dog would stick on the last bird. He knew how to count, whether it was the blind bird.
And let's slow down. Sticking means they won't give you the bird back at the end of the day, after they receive that mark, or the last mark in this case.
They know it's the last bird. They become possessive because they know you're about to leave the test. So what we taught Gus is essentially that is not the last bird. You get your last birds when you walk off the line, and you might get 2, you might get 20. I've had times where I put them into the trailer hole and throw a bunch of retrieves in and out of the hole of the trailer every day. When I would walk off the line, whether it's birds, bumpers, didn't matter. I just, whatever object I'm throwing. And he would get that. I tried to do it every day as consistent as I could be. I forget sometimes.
I do it now just as a matter of course,
Yeah.
And now that it's a part of his life, he knows that it's not it's not the last bird.
That's a pretty difficult problem to solve, from what I understand, and that was a great solution for him, at least.
Positive reinforcement is much more powerful than pressure, and that's a prime example.
Yeah, and you can be proactive about sticking. There's a lot of things you can do, and I really think we should probably end this. But
yeah, you could probably do a podcast on that.
Yeah, you could do a whole podcast, but I'll give the abbreviated version for the person who's like, I need to hear this right now. If you shut this podcast up, I'm going to Yorkville and finding Chris. Actually, it's just so my DMs don't explode tomorrow. The things that you can do is be proactive, like Tyler's saying, whether they have a stickiness problem or not, is when the dog comes off of the line, and you get in that routine of the test is over, just have another person throw another bird from behind the bucket, or throw. If you throw a triple at the end of it, throw a single at the end as well. There's just break it up. Is a great way to really work on the stickiness problem and preventing it ahead of time. Another thing that, because we were concerned that Rex was going to have a stickiness problem after a certain incident, which we will never discuss. But I just started being proactive that like every 6 to 10 birds, as soon as I took the bird, I just give him a sit, nick, very light correction. And it just was like, hey, you have to give me this bird. It was like reverse force fetching, like sit, nick, take the bird. Like, you have to give me this bird. You're going to get a correction. And he never knew when that correction was coming, which is a way you can prevent, to some degree, prevent stickiness. But the best one is, they don't realize that the test is ever over, and doing a walkout, consistently is a great way to do it, as well as just letting them, I've seen other people give them another bird, just like at the bucket. Okay, your test is over. Here's a bird, and walk off the line. That's another way you could do it too.
I do that coming off of the honor. I'll do the hand thrown mark behind me.
Yeah,
I do that almost every time, especially when you're teaching a young dog how to honor. They can easily get very frustrated over and over sitting there watching the bird not getting one. You have to give positive reinforcement when they're giving you the reaction you're looking for, which is calm, sitting, focused on you and just focused on doing their job of maintaining their sit. And if you don't pay the guy that's working for you, he's not going to stick around. He's going to go out there and get that bird himself. So you got to reward him, and ideally away from the running line. All it goes back to is giving the dog what they want when they're performing.
It's very good. Quickly. And so let's end on that. That was awesome. So Bill, Josh, Tyler, thanks for joining. And we'll probably have you all on for part 2 of training in a group. And it could just be funny stories of stupid things Chris has done. That would be a pretty good episode, I think.
That would be 2.
Maybe 2 episodes.
The 2-hour version.
The 2-hour version.
I want it fully narrated by Josh in a funny voice.
Yeah.
Sure, we can arrange that. Well, thanks for being on, guys.